Hey guys, welcome back to the Dear Young Minister podcast. My name is Simi Deleawe, and I'm so glad to have you guys joining me today. Dear Young Minister, humble yourself. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Humble yourself before God humbles you. Okay. Today we're going to be reading from Philippians chapter 2. And such a good part of scripture. Let's get to it. We're going to start from verse 1. It says, "Is there any encouragement from belonging to Christ, any comfort from his love, any fellowship together in the Spirit? Are your hearts tender and compassionate? Then make me truly happy by agreeing wholeheartedly with each other, loving one another and working together with one mind and one purpose. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. You must have the same attitude that Christ had. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privilege. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When he appeared as human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on the cross." I want us to see the power of humility, right? There is something about the fact that you can, but you don't. There's power in that. For you to have the ability to do something, but for you to withhold yourself from doing it, not because you don't have access to it, or not because you're unable to do it, but because you are humbling yourself and saying that I am not going to feel entitled. I am not going to feel put myself on a pedestal, even if everybody else puts me on a pedestal. Come on, right? There's something about humbling yourself. And the truth is that this aspect of even just Christianity, forget ministry, okay? This aspect of Christianity is something that I think that everyone can work on. Everyone from the person who was just born again to the person who has been in the faith for 25 years. I think everyone can work on this, because the truth is that pride is the most accommodated sin in the church. Pride. People will correct you, rebuke you for fornication, but they won't check you for pride. Because many times they won't even check themselves for pride. Pride is so accepted and tolerated in the church that many times we become nose blind to it, right? We can't even see it. Even when it's in front of our face, we can't even see it because it's so normalized. And really, as a minister, it is dangerous to walk around with pride, because you as you are leading people will by default put you on a pedestal, okay? They will by default make you feel big. They will by default say, "Oh, wow, that was so encouraging. Oh, wow, I really love that post. Oh, wow, you really look good today. Oh, wow, I'm really impressed by you." And you must understand that everything you are, everything you will be, everything that God has made you, it is, your source is God. Your source is not yourself. And so when people look at you and say, "Wow, what a wonderful person you are," you must point them back to Jesus. And so it is not ridiculous or overly spiritual to say God gets the glory, or to say God is faithful, or to say it is by the grace of God, because what you are doing is that you are telling them, and you are telling your flesh, that I am what I am by the grace of God. Okay? I am what I am because God has brought me a mighty long way. You must humble yourself, because pride is the default position. Humility takes intentionality. Humility makes sure that even when people elevate you, when people put you on a higher pedestal, you intentionally say, "Hey, I'm gonna step down." Hey, I'm gonna step down. I'm actually good. I am not too big to serve. I am not too big to sweep. I am not too big to clean. I am not too big to move things around. I am not too big to run the errand and pick things up. I am never too big to serve. Now, when we begin to talk about this, a lot of people may get this confused, and they might begin to ask, well, why is it that, if the pastor is not too big to serve, why isn't he cleaning the restrooms and, mopping the floors? And the truth is that some pastors do that. But the truth is also that when you get to a certain place in ministry, you must ask yourself as a pastor and as a minister, am I doing this because I don't want to delegate, or am I doing this because I'm actually called to it? The pastor has a job. The pastor has an assignment. And even in the New Testament, when the apostles saw that, we're spending too much time on food distribution, what did they do? They reassigned the task, not because they were too big for it, but because they knew that this is not why God called us. God called us to preach. God did not call me in this moment, in this season of my life, to begin to do food distribution. And so there's a difference between that and feeling like you're too big to serve, or you're too big to clean, or you're too big to do menial tasks. I need you to humble yourself. Titles are cool, but titles do not put you on a pedestal. At least they're not supposed to. The purpose of a title is so that your assignment is known. It's known to you and it's known to others, right? Everybody likes the term pastor. I said it. Look, everybody should just go around calling themselves laborers. We should just go around saying, I am a pastor laborer. I am a prophet laborer. Like, we should add the word laborer to the behind every single title and every single office that is in the church, because the truth is that when you are called by God and you're called into a specific office, it is not so that you can be big and bad with the title. It is so that you can understand the role and the assignment that God has for you in the kingdom and the kind of labor he's called you to do. It is still labor. It is not a hierarchy or a vibe. It's labor. It's labor. It's labor. And all you're doing is identifying the type of labor by giving a name to the labor. Okay? Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Do not allow people to make you prideful. Don't allow people to make you prideful. Don't allow people to make your head swell. Do not allow people to put you on a pedestal. Do not allow people to make you move faster than God is telling you to move. Do not allow people to make you bypass process because they think, oh, you're bigger than this. You shouldn't still be at this level. No. God hasn't called you away from that level. And until God elevates you, you stay there, because it's those that humble themselves that God will elevate. It's those that humble themselves that God will raise and that God will lift up. So until you humble yourself, you are not permitted to rise. You are not permitted to rise. I want to talk about multiple ways, have 4 ways here that you can humble yourself as a minister. And then I'll share my own personal testimony. Number 1, we humble ourselves by looking out or considering others, being mindful of others, not being selfish. Philippians chapter 2, verse 3. We humble ourselves by being mindful of others, considering others. Once again, you are a minister so that you can serve people. The moment that you begin to serve yourself, the moment that it becomes more about you than about the people that God has sent you to, you've missed it. You've missed it, and you need to recalibrate and go back to the beginning. Okay, so you are saved to serve others, and even Jesus would say, "I did not come to this earth to be served. I came to serve." Number 2, never feel entitled. I've already said that multiple times, but I have to press in on this this point. Never feel entitled. Nobody owes you anything. Anytime you get called to minister, anytime anybody calls you for advice, anytime you get chosen out of the multitude to lead the presentation at work, anytime you get called and you get called because you are skilled or gifted in your abilities, I want you to know that it is by the special mercies and grace of God, and you should begin to thank God that anybody saw anything good in you that was useful for the benefit of humanity. I want you to never ever feel entitled. Don't say, of course I was chosen. Why wouldn't they choose me? Look at how hard I work. That is an unacceptable response to being chosen, to being highlighted, to being recognized by men. Your response should be that I thank God that my good works are shining before men so that people can see it and glorify the Father. Never feel entitled. Never feel entitled. Everything that you are and everything you will be is by the grace of God. Number 3, never stop serving. I know I've said this as well. Never stop serving. Anytime you get the opportunity to serve. Hey, last week we talked about serving mentors or submitting to mentors or submitting to elders and submitting to leadership. And I want to encourage you that one of the best ways to stay humble is by not just submitting to them, but in your submission, serve them. How can you serve their ministry? What is it? Are you driving them? Are you getting them food? Are you helping with their children? How can you serve their ministry? Never stop serving. Find a way to serve. Listen, one thing that will always make me remember where God brought me from is by going back and serving in those little areas. And so sometimes I love to go back and just be on campus and and I've picked people up. Listen, I pick people up and drop them off before. I will do grocery shopping. I will remember the days where I would literally have to time it, because if my car stays in this parking lot for too long, I'm definitely gonna get towed, right? And I would literally have to hurry up and really almost stub my toe and try to figure out a way to get into the building and drop things off and make sure that my car is still intact. I remember those days, and sometimes even though the students will literally be like me and say, Simi, why didn't you just ask for help? I promise you, sometimes I literally go out of my way to not ask for help and to just do the work, because I want to never become so familiar with where God has brought me to. I want to always remember where I started from. And I started on campus as a freshman, as a sophomore, as a junior, as a senior, figuring it out. When I had a car and when I didn't have a car, when I had the money and when I didn't have the money. I never want to forget that, because if God brought me through that. And the fact that he brought me through that means that he has not changed, and he can still bring me through the season that I am in now. I will never be so familiar with God. I will never be so familiar with his faithfulness. And the way I make sure that I remember what God has done is by going back and serving. Even when I maybe shouldn't, right? I go back and I serve. I go back and I serve. Okay? Number 4, obedience. Obedience to God will keep you humble, because the way God will train you, it's always in a way that pride cannot exist. When you begin to disobey God, and you begin to move in your own understanding, move by your own by your own personal, right, ungodly revelation, move in your own strength, what you are doing is that you are allowing pride to thrive. You are allowing pride to seep in. So obedience, obeying what God tells you to do, always being submitted to God, always starting your day and saying, God, what will you have me do today? How will you have me move today? What is the instruction for today? That is how you stay humble. That is how you stay humble. Listen, God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Okay? He gives grace to the humble. And so, dear young minister, humble yourself. Humble yourself. Don't wait until God has to humble you. Because when God has to humble you, it's never cute. When God has to humble you, it's really embarrassing. When God has to humble you, the people that he humbled in scripture, it was comical. It really was. And you don't have to wait until that point. Instead, every day you wake up, every day you get the opportunity to serve. Every day you get the opportunity to speak to people from a place of leadership. I want you to thank God and remind your flesh that I am what I am by the grace of God. That God has brought me a long way, and I will never forget where I was and where God brought me from. Okay, dear young minister, humble yourself. Thank y'all for joining me today. If this blessed you once again, please, please, please share this video. If you don't already, please like, follow, subscribe. We are on Instagram at Dear Young Minister Podcast, and I will see you next time. Bye.